Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. The Be Fulfilled Journal helps you be more honest with yourself and with others and be more open to handling things you've avoided dealing with for years. It's a 12-week online and journal program that helps you identify and eliminate things you do that are causing you stress and live in more gratitude and joy. It was actually developed by a long-term friend of mine who got sober in 2008, and he's put together a great deal just for my listeners. You get the 300-page hardcover journal and access to the 12-week video program online, plus free shipping, plus membership in a private Facebook support group with others going through the program, plus a 5-day mini course showing you how to let go of stuff that's draining your energy, plus a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. To start your journey and get all the bonuses, go to BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. We are with a very unique and interesting guitar player out of Virginia named Chris Bellamy, and Chris has got a great story and he's going to share it with us today. And I want to give a huge shout out to my good friend Blake Wren and our mutual good friend who connected Chris and I. Chris is a professional guitarist and saxophonist from Virginia Beach, Virginia, majored in music education and performance at Old Dominion University. Is that in Virginia, Old Dominion?
Yep.
He's performed with many world-renowned artists such as Gladys Knight, Tony Tenille, Linda Ronstadt, Tommy Newsom, Bob Mincer, and Jeremy Rosado from American Idol. He also performed in the Virginia Symphony for 5 years. Most recently, he's been a guitarist for a rock band called City Voices, and he's currently touring and session guitarist for national recording artists, again, Jeremy Rosado, Jason Baer from Vital Worship, Alisa Turner, Jake and Laura, Kayla J, Brian Campbell, and Mike Lee from Luchador. Chris has been teaching guitar and saxophone for over 18 years. Dude, what did you start when you were like 10 or something? What? I'm just looking at that and looking at you. And he's on staff at Norfolk Academy. He's also on staff as a worship pastor and director of music at International Christian Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia, where he's been serving in that position since 2007. Along with being a contributing writer to the Church Collective, Chris is also part of their board of directors. He teaches at multiple conferences and workshops for worship musicians throughout the year, including the National Worship Leader Conference, Sweetwater Worship Connect Conference, and the Identity Conference. Chris lives in Virginia Beach with his wife, Susan, and their border collie, Sam. And he's got a great collection of guitars he always puts on Instagram. Dude, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm stoked to be here.
Well, actually, I want to ask you about that. I saw you putting up some of your guitars to sale. Did you get rid of them, or what's the status?
That's funny. So I try to learn something new, like every year, like kind of pick something. And this year I haven't really told anybody, but I've kind of diving into photography.
Oh, I love photography. That's cool, man.
Turned out to be much more of a money pit than even music is. So
yeah.
Every guitar you see for sale is because there's a lens I want.
Oh, okay. Did you go mirrorless or SLR or DSLR rather?
You know, I bought a Canon DSLR, and like 7 of my photography friends were like, "What did you buy that for? You should have bought a Sony." And
yeah, mirrorless, that's the way to go.
Yeah. And they just twisted my arm, and like on the 29th day, I had one more day to return it, and I just broke, and I returned it and got a Sony A7 III.
Good man, that was the right move for sure, man.
So that was another piece of gear. I had to sell my Universal Audio aux.
That's brand new.
I know.
Wow.
It wasn't hard to sell that, but
no, I'm sure. So I guess you're really into photography then. You like it. What do you take pictures of? What's your thing?
So I basically test out on music gear,
Okay.
because, Instagram is so popular, and, there's only so much you can do with an iPhone.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I would see friends of mine and I'd be like, hey man, how come your pictures are so much better than mine? I mean, you got to stop taking with that iPhone,
Yeah.
And then also I do like, gear demos for a couple, pedal companies.
Very cool.
And, some of them had mentioned like, hey, it would be cool if you could use better quality cameras, versus your iPhone. And so I took their advice. Like my buddy Rick Matthews from Matthews Effects Pedals, he's the one that really was like, hey man, you should get a Sony. He's got a Sony, and he showed me how to do lighting and how to do like proper settings. This is a whole new world for me. So I'm like 3 months into it. But yeah,
I love photography, man. It's a great hobby / habit. It's really fun. I love it. I take street photography pictures whenever I'm out of town. So I feel you on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
My father, he was a violin maker. He recently passed away, and he was big into photography, and like he would always develop his own pictures. He had a dark room and everything. And I don't know what it is, but I never really went down that route with him. But now that he's gone, it kind of gives me a little connection to him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Makes me understand like what he was doing, more appreciate his photos he was taking and stuff. So
yeah, when you're doing the videos, I'm assuming you've already come to learn that the pain is in the editing, not the filming.
Oh yeah, yeah. It takes me probably like 3 days to make a 30-second clip.
Yeah, editing is brutal, man. For any media, that's where the work is actually. Writing, anything. So my first question was, man, I read through your bio. It's always funny when you have like you are super busy and you got 2 paragraphs. Once in a blue moon, I'll get someone maybe that's not so busy, but they give me like a page. It's always inverse. The amount of words in the bio is inverse to actually how much stuff you actually have going on. So my question for you is, you are incredibly busy, and I would imagine you've got to be pretty judicious with time management. Are you?
Yeah. The time is, I don't really even evaluate money as much as time.
Oh, of course. You can make money. You can't make time, man.
Yeah. So like, I mean, just for an example, in my mind, I got into a kind of a debate with a buddy of mine about having a lawn guy. And he's like, well, I just love doing the lawn. I was like, man, I love doing the lawn too. I was all into it, but I can hire a lawn guy for $42 instead of, I could do probably like 4 lessons or a studio session in the amount of time, make double the money, pay the $40 out of the lawn guy, and then pocket $80,
Right.
And so that's like my thinking for everything. It's like, how much time is this going to take? And, could I pay somebody to do it?
Yeah. And sometimes even if you don't, just like, to me, I don't have a lot of free time. So if I have to pay someone something to be free and do nothing, there's a value in there, a huge value, when you're really busy. So I'm with you. A lot of people I speak to struggle with, I'm going to say, I hate to say so cliche, but time management. Any tips? What you just said is one of them, to evaluate the actual cost and return of that. But anything else? Yeah.
I think a couple of years ago, I started kind of realizing that I had a problem saying no to people. And I had to just kind of come to grips with that and be more bold. And I kind of boiled my life down to, where are my happy places?
Good for you.
And so I decided my 2 happy places career-wise are either the stage or the studio. And so I, every decision I make, I think, is this leading towards the stage or is this leading to the studio somehow? And if it's not, then I have to unfortunately say no. And, people get upset, but, they start to understand.
And if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
Good for you, man. That's great. Where are my happy places? I think that's a very good mantra, man, to be honest with you. What did you play first, sax or guitar?
I actually played violin first. My dad was a violin maker, and he got me playing violin when I was 1.5.
Get out.
Yeah, I started on it was a cereal box with a ruler taped to it and a stick with some pencils stabbed in the cereal box. And it's like a little training thing that he had me doing to just get the proper form and everything, you know? And then I did it like, from what he tells me and what I saw with my younger sister was he did that for like a couple weeks. And then he gave me like the smallest violin that they have, which is super, you know, it's like the size of your hand.
Wow.
And then, you know, did the Suzuki, the Japanese method of learning stuff, Suzuki. And I did that. And then when I was around 8, he added piano. And so I was taking piano and violin. And then when I was 9, he said he allowed me to branch out and start the saxophone because I heard Kokomo by the Beach Boys.
Very cool.
The song. And I was like, man, whatever that is that makes that solo, like I want to do that. And so then I started playing sax. And guitar was always just something on the side that my dad would show me. Like we would just sit around, like I have pictures of me when I was like in diapers holding a guitar, but it was always kind of like not something you study. It's just kind of something he showed me, you know? And so I ended up quitting violin and piano when I was 13, concentrating on sax. But then all the while I would play guitar on the side as kind of it was almost like playing video games to me, you know, like you just pick it up. It's not really something I'm not playing concertos or anything, you know? And then I think when, what really got me was, Stone Temple Pilots came out with their first album and I just wanted to play plush so bad that I rode my bike up to a guitar store and found the tab for it. And like that, I think it was that and, Lenny Kravitz, Are You Gonna Go My Way?
Great song.
Like those two things, like just, I was like, man, like this is cool stuff. So, but I still didn't really, study guitar. I focused on sax because I knew that was going to get me to college, and did the whole, like, you know, all city band. And then high school, I ended up doing all state, got ranked number 1 in the state for jazz sax. I got a scholarship to college. And I finished all my requirements on sax, and I was scared, like at the moment, like, is sax sustainable? You know, because at that time, like the Y2K scare and all that era, like you didn't hear really sax on the radio, you know? And I was thinking like, man, I'm going to start over on guitar. So I started completely over. I took every class that I took on sax on guitar.
You stayed in school.
Yeah.
So you had your degree, like, and you went back and took classes.
I hadn't finished my degree. I was at the point where I needed to do student teaching to finish.
Okay.
But I just was like, I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna take all the classes I took, you know, on guitar. And like my professors thought I was just crazy, you know.
Good for you, man. That's really cool.
And I remember my first jury I had to do on classical guitar. They were just like, what is he doing? You know, like, what an idiot. And classical guitar is like a different animal than regular guitar.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I remember just being in front of all of my professors, normally being so confident, and I was shaking so bad I couldn't even pluck the strings, like I couldn't, you know. And I sounded like a mess, and they were like, I don't think this is for you. Like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And I was like, no, I really need to do this for myself, you know. And I pushed through it. And then I started taking lessons with the guitar jazz professor there. And then I finished all the requirements on classical and jazz. And I'm glad I did, because after that, you know, when I was teaching, I maybe had like 2-3 sax students a year. I would have like 40 guitar students a year.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah.
Plus, I would imagine your sight reading chops, having spent all these years violin, piano, and then sax, when you came to sit and play guitar, it was not a problem for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge for session work, man.
Yeah, that helped me. I was actually in the classical guitar ensemble, and I was like the only guy in there that could sight read.
Yeah, I'm not surprised one little bit.
Yeah, and the rest of the guys would, it was a weird thing for me to be like, man, what do you mean you can't sight read? What do you mean you can't read notes? They're like, well, we're used to reading tab and stuff, and so. Yeah, I think that's helped me kind of set apart from some people because I understand all the, reading music, conducting, reading scores, so I've been able to do more than just play guitar. So
it's interesting. I've interviewed a ton of top session guys in Nashville, and one of the things not all of them, because some of them are very excellent sight readers, but several of them are not. And they said, and they're top guys. It's not a question of like, do you give this you don't want to give it to this guy because you can't sight read. Some of them have said, I wish I could sight read a little better, or I wish I started learning earlier is more of a common thing, because,
yeah.
As you learn things as a kid, it's a lot easier to process. So
yeah, definitely.
Man. Very cool. It's funny you said Suzuki. I interviewed, man, do you know Guns N' Roses, Richard Fortus?
Yeah.
He took violin Suzuki Method. And he loved it, man. He said it really helped him. What is different about that style of learning?
So it starts you, everything is by rote. So it's like, here's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. This is how you play it. Don't worry about reading the music yet. And so it gets you playing first, kind of by imitation. And then it also does, it's almost like peer pressure. Like you're in these like groups and and you have to like do these concerts, and you'll do the concert. Everybody knows the same songs. And then when you get to the place where you're at, you sit down. And so like the ones that have gone farther are still standing, and it's like the last man standing,
Okay.
So it's like, it's almost like a sport,
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't really focus on reading. And then, so that's why later on, my dad actually took me out of Suzuki and got me with, there was a lady from Juilliard who had retired and moved to our area, and he was working on her violins, and he got me taking lessons with her because he was like, man, you need to get your reading up, So I continued the second half of my studies with her.
It sounds like you were always like, almost, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but like expected to become a musician.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was just so, my dad being a violin maker, playing in the symphony and everything, it was just what he did. And but he didn't pressure me. And he actually said to me, I remember when I was like 16, he was like, hey, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, do you want to make money or do you want to be happy? And I was like, I mean, what, shouldn't I want both, He's like, well, just letting you know, if you want to be a musician, you're not going to be making money. And I'm like, what, why? And he's like, well, that's just the life of a musician. You're not going to be a millionaire, and he's like, unless you're going to be writing songs and singing or something, you're not going to be a superstar. So I just want you to have that reality, which was cool that he told me that, because I thought like, that you do both. And ever since then, I've always been like, man, how is it possible to make money doing this? And I think it's possible to make money doing anything, but you have to be professional. Too many people are not professional in the way they deal with things. So,
well, you have to be organized, and you have to have specific, you got to go after stuff, man. And you got to have plan B, C, and D, and maybe E, F, and G, because 3 of them aren't going to work anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you on that, man, very much. And I think, and I've been working for myself for 20 years, and I'm a lot older than you. So in my experience, what I've seen is every one of my buddies that's also an entrepreneur, we've all got, you got to have a bunch of side hustles, man, because you never know when, even if you're doing great on one thing, Google comes and changes their algorithm or something like that that's out of your control. There's always challenges. So if you have sort of like a little bit of diversity, it helps. Yeah.
My big thing is having multiple streams of income. Yeah. And, when people talk to me, like, how do you become a musician? Like, how do you become a professional? Like, and I'm like, man, it's all about all those streams, teaching, lessons, clinics, session work, touring, even the church world, that's another stream of income. I know a lot of my buddies that are touring guys, they've got like a gig at a church, when they're not on the road.
I don't know if you know this guy in California, Joe Odd Jello is his name, Augello. Excuse me, I'm sorry, Chris. He's originally from New York, from Long Island. He's been living in LA a long time. Most of he tours. He's Robin Thicke's guitar player.
Okay.
But when he's not with Robin, 90% of the time, he plays in massive, massive churches. That's his thing. And he does really well. And he does the same thing, sessions, he does lessons, whatever, but that's his big thing there. And he gets a lot of gigs through that because, just because they're not all musicians, you're playing in front of maybe 10,000 people a week, man, one of them is going to know somebody that says, hey, Joe at my church is a real, and you just the sheer volume of people. So yeah, I think the most important thing is getting out with people, getting off the internet and just actually shaking hands and having conversations with people, man. It's just always a feather in your cap.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your bio, it said you're a worship pastor. So if you could talk about what does that involve and how'd you get involved in doing that?
So like a worship pastor versus like a worship musician or a worship leader would be the person that's in charge of the entire department. So like for me, I'm not just like a singer, or I'm not just a guitar player. Like I have to be over like the lighting, the video, the sound, the order of the services, kind of like a production manager is, so I'm over everything, the choir, the musicians, the singers, anything that happens that involves music, is like my domain. So like a music director, production manager, everything wrapped up. So like when I play with artists, most of the time I'm also the music director, like the MD for the musicians. And so it's kind of that vibe, like you're in charge, it's a lot of sitting behind a computer and just planning stuff out, scheduling stuff and, making, writing out charts, like all, all the behind the scenes stuff.
But you got a lot of moving parts you're responsible for at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy the things that you find yourself doing, in that position. But it's just it's a lot better than just doing like coming home and from a tour and just doing bar gigs or I enjoy it a lot more than just teaching or trying to make ends meet. And plus it's ministry, so it's making a difference.
Sure.
I enjoy the fellowship with everybody. The guys on my team, a lot of them are also like studio musicians. Another good buddy of mine plays drums and he owns a studio, and like it's fun to be able to have that level of musicianship, at church as well, so it's an interesting thing. I didn't ever expect to get into that world. And then, I went in college, I got super heavy into the jazz world of doing massive drugs, massive, drinking, just thinking that was what you did as a jazz musician. And I hit rock bottom and, man, I turned to God and fell into a completely different path.
So how long have you been sober then?
That happened in like 2000, like 1999, maybe.
Okay. So quite some time.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself sober. Like
you're just not like out of control.
I'm not doing the drugs that I was doing before, like sure. I social drink still, and I'm not legalistic. I'm not like a straight edge guy or anything. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not doing like acid and shrooms and cocaine or anything like that. I've got that all, which was weird because in college, it was almost taught like you have to be able to learn how to perform
while stoned. Yeah, that's funny, man.
Because that's the jazz world, and it's like, hey, like you need to learn this, and so that was my reality, and I think I just took it too far.
Yeah, well, good for you for recognizing that.
Yeah,
that's amazing because like I can't even do things like sober. To be honest with you, like the thought of being inebriated, like in any professional capacity, I can honestly say in my whole career, anything I've ever done, I've not, because I just, outside of work, sure, I'll have a drink, whatever, but I'm not, it's to perform business wise, I can't handle it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, so when I'm not a guy that's familiar with organized religion, as I'd mentioned to you. So when I see the word pastor, what I think of is the church mass leader. That's not what you're doing. You're in charge of the musical, everything related to music, but just because the word pastor is there, you're not the pastor of the church.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. I didn't realize that. Thanks for explaining it to me. Cause I'm like thinking to myself, I'm reading all this. I'm like, and he's a pastor. How the hell does he have time? I mean, I'm thinking you're like never sleeping, man. Not that you don't you don't have a lot, but I'm thinking you're ministering at church on top of that. I'm like, wow. Okay.
Yeah, no, because there's like the pastor that speaks, but then there could be like a family pastor. There could be a pastor over, the small groups of pastors. Basically, they're the staff members,
Okay.
So, pastor means shepherd. So the person that's kind of guiding that, whatever, it could be even like a pastor over the administration,
Totally get it.
So, yeah.
I'm thinking you were like the most organized time. I was like literally going to have a private conversation with you. Like, how do you do this, man? Cause I'm really like good with my time, but you are like next level ninja shit, man.
Yeah. No, like pastors like have a gift of like working with people. And I try to work with people, but I can't be like, the head pastor where he's like constantly counseling people and giving sermons and all that stuff,
Yeah. That guy needs to be drinking. I'll tell you right now. Okay. So I know you do a lot of teaching as part of, your work with the, hang on a second, the Church Collective.
Yeah.
What are some of the topics that you talk about and lecture on?
So the Church Collective is a nonprofit organization that are basically a mission statement is to equip and empower worship leaders and creatives. So we're trying to, how it started was there was a couple of us that were teaching at these big conferences, and these big conferences are like, they're charging like $300 to $400 a person, and which was not accessible to most churches. And so we decided to leave and to start our own organization and try to see if we could do it completely for free. So we started doing everything for free, totally nonprofit. We don't charge anything because we just felt like, stuff gets corrupt when you start adding money into it, And so we're like, how can we get this to people that can't afford this stuff, to the average church musician, but give them quality professional training. So it started as just like a website. And then how I got involved is I met the guy that founded it, and he knew that I was doing guitar workshops up and down the East Coast. And he was like, hey, man, what would you think about partnering and making these, like branding it, the Church Collective workshops? And I was like, that sounds cool to me. Let's do it. And they had a pretty big following already. So immediately my guitar workshops went from like, 20 people to like 40, 50, 60 people, and then after a couple of years of that, we decided to make them into full-on conferences.
Okay.
And so basically we'll just go in and we'll do like a conference where like I'll teach a class on gear, like how to get your gear together, how to, build a pedal board, how to get good guitar tones. I'll teach a class on guitar theory, which is like, music theory, but in a guitar aspect, natural numbering system, inversions, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll also teach a class on like music directing and like leading rehearsals. And then, we have a team of about 10, 15 people, and we try to get guys that are like from the professional world, but also involved in church to offer like professional help, not just amateur hobbyists,
Yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah.
If there's somebody listening that wants to either get involved with the organization from a teaching standpoint or from attending workshops as a student standpoint, what do they do?
We're all over social media. Like Instagram is a huge hub for us. It's just called the Church Collective. And then there's Facebook has a group that people can join and they can ask questions like, hey, I'm trying to play this song. How would I, what position would I play this in? What inversions would you use? And,
so it's like, it's real detailed.
There'll be people that would answer the questions. And so like there's a Facebook group and everything.
Very cool, man. So Instagram and Facebook, and anybody interested, it's the Church Collective. And I'm assuming if they want to teach, they'll recognize pretty quickly who to speak to on there. Yeah.
Like, you mentioned your buddy Blake. He's going to be, hopefully he said he would teach the national numbering system at our next East Coast conference in August.
That's great.
So, he's coming from the studio world too. So, that's exactly what we're looking for is guys that have that professional background, but also have a heart, and not looking for any self-promotion and not looking to make money out of it,
Yeah. No, he's a great guy. He'll be great there. And he's got incredible people skills, man. In fact, he's extremely gifted that. Okay. For people that like me that don't know much about the worship music scene, I was wondering if you could sort of maybe educate us and talk about the scene in general. And then how does something get classified as worship music versus not being worship music?
Well, previously it would just be called gospel music, but I think in the last maybe 10 to 20 years, it's kind of shifted. The style of it has shifted. Where it's more of it's like a rock band basically.
Yes, because you can tell gospel. You don't need to be going to church to say, "Oh, that's gospel, man. It sounds great." But it's gospel. It's just like jazz or psychedelic music. It's very distinct. Yeah.
So the lyrics are still gospel lyrics, but the style is. I mean, to be blatantly honest, it's kind of like a mix between Coldplay and U2. I think they're the biggest influence on that genre.
That's probably very fair.
But it's turned into where it's not pipe organs or anything. It's two electric guitars, an acoustic guitar, a full-on drummer, three keyboard players. We're running like stems and tracks and Ableton and all that jazz. It's turned into a big production. I don't know if it really needs to be that much, but it's kind of gone that direction. But yeah.
And the primary differential is the lyrics are centered around church related messages, I guess then.
Yeah. Like the lyrics would be based on the gospel, based on, theologically correct lyrics, instead of, secular, which is usually about like a girl or a guy, or your circumstances, so.
Okay. That makes sense. So theologically correct, theologically oriented and theologically correct. That makes sense. This is our first time anyone's used the word theologically on this show. So this is like, Chris, new ground all over, bro.
I get you, man. I come from both worlds. So I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah, well, it's not like a feeling. It's just the feeling is like complete idiocy because I'm not totally unfamiliar with anything in this, Yeah. So I'm like very interested in always learning stuff and like getting turned on and new stuff. But it's just like I'm a fish out of water, It's just okay. Are you working on anything now you're excited about? Because I know you got so much going on.
Man, it's, summer's coming. And so it's like festival season.
Oh, cool.
And so, I've got some festivals coming up. I play for a country artist named Kayla J. We've got two festivals in Atlanta. And then a couple of the artists I play for also are doing some festivals. So pretty much just festivals all summer. And then the producer I work for, his name is Aaron Rice. He's based out of Nashville. We've been just doing a ton of projects lately.
That's great.
And so, you know, you never know when it's going to come out. So like you might work on something and then like 8 months later you forgot about it and then it comes out and it's like, oh, cool, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked for all that.
So you're Aaron's like first call guy, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to think I am. But yeah, he'll send me basically. So he gets like an artist. He's a writer and a producer. And so he'll get an artist come in and then he'll get usually a guest writer to come in. Mm-hmm. And they'll write a song. And he'll send me like a work tape, which is basically, you know, piano and some vocals. And it went from, you know, here's the work tape, just add guitars, to now he's like, we have a relationship where he trusts me completely and he's like, hey, do whatever you want with it, you know? And so I just take the chord progression. I actually put some like drum samples so that when I make my parts, they're matching with kind of the beat, you know?
Yeah.
And then I've gotten to the point where now I'm doing like the bass, the electrics, the acoustics, any banjo, mandolin. I'll add keys parts, sax parts. So like all of the music, with the exception of drums, he has a guy named George Lopez, not the comedian, but he's a session guy out of Nashville that just plays with everybody and their brother. But so he does the drums. And then he's got another guy named Luke that will do a lot of instruments too. But the three of us are basically his first call guys. But it's fun because then, you know, I'll play on the album and then when it comes out, they'll be like, hey, we need to do some shows. We need to do a tour.
That's great.
And I tell you what, it's so much more enjoyable playing on a tour when you were the one that wrote the parts.
Oh my God. Yeah. Learning Steve Lukather's part or somebody. Yeah.
Exactly.
That is so cool. Yeah.
And so and plus it's like, it makes you feel good that you wrote it. You know, it doesn't make you feel like you're just like some guy that just is in a cookie cutter, you know, doing somebody else's stuff. So,
well, you got pride of ownership in the work that you did. So that's really cool. Yeah, man. How did you get hooked up with Aaron?
So that's a long story.
Cliff Notes version.
So I used to be a radio show host on this radio station called The Current. And there was another guy that was also a radio show host on The Current on a different day as me. That guy, his name is Jason Bear, who's since become one of my best friends. He was an artist out of Charlotte, North Carolina, who had moved here to, you know, for his family to go, or for his kids to go to school here and stuff. And he needed his guitar player needed to borrow an amp. And I was like, hey, you can borrow my Bad Cat, you know? And so he said, cool. He had a show like kind of close to us. I showed up and he was like, man, like, I thought you were going to bring more than this. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, we need full backline. And I was like, oh. And I was like, well,
come on, don't you read minds, man? You know, what's going on, Chris?
Well, so there was like a middleman, like a lady that was kind of like coordinating this. And so he thought I was the backline guy.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that he thought that. So I was like, let me go back to my studio. I'll grab a keyboard. I'll grab my drum kit. I'll grab a bass amp, everything, and brought it. He was like, cool. I dropped it off. That's how I met his guitar player, Sean, who is Blake's friend. So that's how I met Blake.
Okay.
And so he calls me like a couple hours later. He's like, when are you coming back for a sound check? And I was like, I'm not coming back, man. And he's like, well, who's running sound? And I was like, what? What do you mean who's running sound? I'm not a sound guy. And he's like, they said you're going to be running sound for me. And I was like, bro, what did they tell you? And they said you were the backline and sound company. I was like, man, dude, I'm just a guitar player, like, with a studio. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, and so at that point he realized there was like a huge miscommunication,
Just a little. Yeah.
So I ended up running sound for him. And the show didn't go so well. The venue's fire alarm went off because of the smoke, and the little sprinklers started going off and everything. Nice. It was terrible. So it's like, and so anyway, afterwards he was like, man, hey, let's go out to dinner, and just kind of blow this off. And I was like, yeah. And so I went out with them, and all of his guys were Nashville players. And I met them, and we became friends. And then like maybe a month later, he was like, hey, he called me up. He's like, hey, Sean can't do this next tour. Could you fill in? And I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, I was like, when do you leave? He's like, tomorrow. And I was like, and like, hold on, let me get my, all my ducks in a row for that. And so, I ended up going on it. It was a like almost 2 weeks, small little tour up and down the East Coast. And, from then on, like we just became friends. Sean ended up moving to Knoxville, and I became his main guitar player. And then his producer was Aaron. So
okay.
I had a big festival out one summer out near Nashville, and I went with him, and he was like, hey man, like, you want to meet Aaron? I was like, yeah, sure. And he's like, just warning you, don't really like a lot of people, so just kind of just be warned. And I was like, that's cool. And
what was he warning you about?
Like he's not a people person,
Oh,
like, he's
Aaron's like, not a people person.
Yeah, because he's very like to the point, and and I was like, man, I'm fine, whatever. And he's like, basically be a fly on the wall, And so I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm cool, I know how to act. And so
that's always weird when someone warns you, hey, I want to introduce you. He's not a people person. Like, what do you say to that? Okay.
So we were in the studio, and like by the end of the day, like me and Aaron had just like hit it off. Like we were
good,
super good friends. And Aaron was like, hey man, like, you want to work on stuff with me? And I was like, yeah, but I don't live in Nashville. And he's like, oh, dang. And so for years, like I would fly out to Nashville and work with him. And then I started being like, man, it's a lot of work to fly back and forth. I either need to move there, or I need to like recreate the studio in my house. And a couple years ago, I just started buying literally the signal chain that the studio we were working in, which is a big studio. But I just noticed, they're running me through the same thing every time. It was like two 1073s, two 1176s, two Royers, a Royer and a SM57, and I was like, man, I could get those pieces and be able to work from home. And so I started building up my studio, and now I just work remotely. So I go there once a quarter just to hang out, check in, whatever, but everything we do is over Skype. Dropbox. We're just sending Dropbox files every day.
That's great, man. Good story, man. Were you ever tempted after you hit it off and said, hey, Sean said you were kind of a dick.
I totally told him that.
You don't seem like that at all.
We have a very open relationship, and like I told him everything, and he was like, man, the guy Jason, the artist, that said that, I was like, I totally told Aaron what you said. He's like, why did you tell him that? And I was like, man. So we're all really good friends now, though. So
that's good. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a nice thing going there for each other, personally and professionally, which is great.
But yeah, so Aaron, his thing is he works with a lot of the guys from American Idol and The Voice. Like, okay, they send their top 10 guys his way, or girls, and he does artist development. He kind of decides like, okay, which genre are you going to go towards? Like, and he's all up in like knowing the standards for every radio station. Like, okay, if you want to go to this type of radio station, this is the kind of songs we need to write, and like all the parameters and which is a whole, I don't know if you know about all that stuff. It's crazy.
I don't, but it sounds, it's like a separate business. That's for sure.
It is like, you have to know exactly which type of radio stations, which genre, and there's subgenres for every single genre. And it's like, okay, it's got to have this, it's got to be exactly this time limit. It's got to have this many choruses. It's got to have the intro acid. It's such a formula, and everything is planned. It's surprising how much everything is planned out. It's kind of sad, but
I was just thinking this kind of sucks, man. I mean, which is because it's kind of the antithesis of why you play music, to create,
Yeah.
But that being said, I don't like pop music in general, and I never have for that reason, because it always seemed, for me, formulaic. Would I listen to Diana Ross and the Supremes in the 70s? Sure. Was it pop? Yeah. I listened to, stuff like that? And you could look at stuff like from Dire Straits, it was Money for Nothing pop. Yeah, but it was good. But by and large, most pop I've always found it just a little formulaic for me, and it was a bit of a turnoff.
Yeah, I love that scene in Bohemian Rhapsody where they're pitching the song Bohemian Rhapsody, and they're like, "This is like an 8-minute song. This can't work." And Freddie Mercury's like, "All right, well, take it or leave it, but we're going somewhere else,
Yeah.
And that was like that's so true to like how it is today,
The only thing is these people, and nothing against anybody listening who's gone that route and this is them, but you don't have a choice, because if it's become so sterilized, if it's not you, they're just going to get the person, the guy or the gal right behind you. So it might as well be you, and it's a tough thing to have to go through. I'm sure a lot of these people have, are looking in the mirror at times and saying, is this what I want? And hopefully they can get powerful enough, like a Taylor Swift or whatever, then they can do what they want. But yeah, it's not easy for anybody, I would say.
Yeah. Crazy world.
Chris, you grew up there in Virginia Beach. Sounds like you had a pretty good childhood overall.
Pretty decent. I mean, there's definitely a lot. I grew up in a little bit of a rough neighborhood. Got put in the hospital.
Did you really? For what?
Yeah. Just getting jumped.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's interesting, but
just wrong place, wrong time.
I was just walking home from school,
Holy smoke. How old are you, man?
Right now?
No, then.
Oh, I was like 16,
wow,
walking home.
That sucks.
Yeah. And so, the school I went to, it's called Green Run, but its nickname was Gang Run.
Nice.
At the time. So
I didn't realize they're so prolific, that many gangs down there.
Yeah. Yeah. It depends what area. It's kind of like LA, like LA is like, you turn down the wrong road and you're like, where am I?
Yeah. I think any big city is kind of like that. You have to sort of know, and then you hopefully know or not know where to go.
Yeah. Then again, probably guys in LA would probably laugh at my situation.
Yeah. Right. It's all relative. Very true, man.
So, but yeah, it made me, it helped me, become who I am. So
good for you, man. Did you, you said your dad was a violin maker.
Yeah.
Did your mom work, or was she a stay-at-home mom?
She was a teacher.
Very cool. That's always good when you have one like guaranteed income, guaranteed benefits person in the household.
Yeah.
And the other person is doing the music stuff or anything creative like that. Very cool. You mentioned that you got jumped. What were some of the low points or dark periods that you might have had to deal with in general, and how'd you get through them? Either personal, musical, business, either one.
I think the darkest point was, after I got married. So my wife, she was attacked when she was younger, when she was 13.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And so we've actually had 12 miscarriages. So we don't have any kids that are alive, but we've had 12 miscarriages. And because she has scar tissue from when she was attacked. And then a couple years after we got married, she got diagnosed with the doctor said It was like a terminal disease. It's called Hughes syndrome.
God.
And they said you probably can manage it, whatever. And that year, she was in and out of the hospital so much that I ended up selling all of my gear, all of my guitars, all of my amps, all of my recording gear, and just keeping one guitar, just enough to like keep going, and so she battled with that for like about a year, and that was like a turning point in my faith, because like I was like wrestling, like, yeah, God, if you're real, I need something right now. I can't deal with this, and after 8 months of that, she went back to the doctor, and he was like, hey, I don't know what to tell you, but your disease is gone. And I was like, and she called me, she told me that, and I was like, no. What, like, what do you mean gone? Like, he said it was terminal, and she's like, he said it's gone. He had like 8 nurses come redo the and I was like, I want some paperwork, I can't just accept this like a miracle to be a miracle, so she ended up going back multiple times to make sure, and they were like, this is the first case that we've ever had somebody completely like beat this. He's like, you're not even, she was anemic too, and he's like, you're not even anemic anymore. And I was just like, man. And so that was what really kind of like changed the trajectory of me, like, kind of being more involved in church and doing the ministry, the nonprofit and everything. Just, my appreciation for that whole scenario and what happened, her being healed. And, but yeah, that was tough. And then just rebuilding from there, start one by one, buying stuff, like getting guitars and, flipping guitars to get a better guitar, building up the studio again. And, that was about, I think 10 years ago, but yeah, that was definitely the low part.
How long did it take you to get what you would say back on your feet?
It took me a good 3-4 years.
That's not bad, to be honest with you, at all.
And I just took, prior to that, I was like, kind of picky with my students. And then I just took anybody. I was to the point where I was teaching like 48 students a week. Because we were just trying to pay the bills, the medical bills. I mean, insurance only paid for a portion of it. And then all these extra tests, was just through the roof. And then, getting a guitar here, deciding what I really needed, versus like what
want versus need. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, then I started getting back into touring, and then that's when I got into the studio stuff. And from there, it's just been, but I've always kept that in the back of my mind, what happened. And I think that's what makes me like, when we talked about time, like that constantly I'm thinking about like, how am I using my time? I've only got so many days left on this earth.
Right.
And I'm a little obsessed with having urgency for doing things, Yeah. Aside from just spending time with my wife, other than that, I don't really like to do like leisure stuff. I'm always like, that whole thing just changed everything for me. Changed my outlook on life, changed my urgency, changed the way I, think about my wife. I try not to take anything for granted now.
Yeah.
So.
So a few things, man. First of all, thank you for sharing that. That was very cool of you. And I think a lot of people are everybody has shit going on, man, Yeah. So I think people are going to relate to that. I certainly can. A few questions. I just want to process my own thoughts on this. First of all, I'm really happy that your wife's okay. I can't imagine. No, I can imagine. My wife had cancer when she was 36. And honestly, it was kind of a similar story. In a really bad deck of cards, we got the best ones available. And it was like, I understand exactly how you feel. Yeah. So yeah, exactly how you feel. And I have not shared that on this show yet. So I totally get that, man. From my experience, because I'm really similar to that. I struggle with doing leisure time because in the back of my mind, I always feel I got time to make up. I have a sense of urgency outside of spending time with my wife and kids. I have a sense of urgency, like, shit, I should be doing something. My own take on me for that is that's wrong. And I'm really struggling. And I struggle with it, but I'm really trying hard to get better at that because I only have X amount of hours. And so I'm thinking, if I'm looking back, I'm going to be, I'm not going to think about all the great things I accomplished at work, even though they're being accomplished for not necessarily money, for like a goal setting because I could do it. But I'm going to think about the memories with my wife or just, doing something I like, playing my guitar. Right. So I totally get that, man, 100%. And it's a tough thing to know if you're doing the right thing or not. At least it is for me. So I totally understand that, man. Wow.
I was watching a documentary on Warren Buffett, and the guy that was interviewing him got an email, and he said it was from Warren Buffett's secretary, I guess, and it said, please don't take this the wrong way, but Warren Buffett only has a certain amount of minutes on this earth and left, and do not be late. This is the time that he's gonna give you, and he's not gonna go over. He's not gonna be waiting around or anything. So be on time and don't go over. and I was like, wow, that's a crazy way to think about it. But when you're his age, he's calculated how many minutes he's got left on this earth based on like what his lifespan is. Doctors him, and he's calculated down to the minute. And
that's a little creepy for me, to be honest with you, because I'd like to think if I have this much time, I'm going to be here this much time, like 3, 4, 5 times longer than that. I'm always optimistic, man, to be honest with you. Yeah,
but that's some urgency right there.
Yeah, but I'm like that with time. Like, I want someone to, of course I was 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late to our call, but I gave you a heads up.
Yeah. But I was having trouble with Skype myself.
So it worked. No, but I mean, in general, like if I like to be punctual and I like, I hope others are going to be punctual, and most of the time they are, but I'm like, like if I have I don't know how it is in Virginia, but here in Florida, the work ethic, Tampa's better than East Coast. Man, you make an appointment for someone to fix anything, your air, your pool. It's 1:00. Maybe they show up at 3 and you're like, dude, what's up? Oh, well, my guy was late. Your guy was late. What, I wasn't put on earth to wait for your guy to get here, man. You got a telephone, right? It's right there. I see it. Anyway, so I get that, man.
That's the South for you right there.
Yeah, well, I think Florida tends to be a little lacking. Again, West Coast Florida a little better than it was in East Coast, my experience anyway. But yeah, I'm like, is there anything, if you had to go back, you've been through a lot, what advice would you have given your younger self now that you're on the tail end of that? And hopefully that you don't have anything more like that to deal with.
Man, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I would change anything because I can see even the bad stuff I did. Like, even the heavy drugs, all of that, I wouldn't be able to appreciate where I'm at now without that, without hitting rock bottom. I think I needed all the bad times to appreciate all the good times. The one thing that I regret the most is I turned down an offer to do the Temptations reunion tour.
Oh wow!
And I, because I had made another commitment, and I was big on. I just decided in my mind that I would never cancel on anybody. I don't care what the opportunity is, and I will never be that guy that will take a bigger gig, and it turned out that what I had canceled for was just not even close to what it would have been, And so I've since gotten to the point where I'm more honest with people. Like, hey man, like I really think I'm going to be honest with you. This opportunity is a lot more lucrative for me. Like, without hurting people's feelings. I think if you're upfront and honest, then then people appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was my mentality before, like, you know what, even if I committed to this birthday party, I'm going to pass up on this gig, like whatever, and so I always have wondered, like, man, I wonder what that would have been like. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I think most of the guys, most of the musicians I've talked to, they are good up until the time, like once the gig starts, that's it. If you're on tour, you're not, for the most part, you're not leaving the tour.
Yeah.
But if it's before the tour has started, I think people are pretty good. And I think people pretty much understand, like, hey, I've got this other opportunity. I'm going to get you a sub. I'm going to work with that person. I'm not going to leave you in the, that kind of stuff. But I think it's, as long as it's before the gig started, it sounds like it was before the gig started.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was way before.
Yeah, but you never know. Hey, man, you could have saved your life by not taking that gig. You might have been, you just never know. So, I mean, that's the way you got to look. It is what it is. That's the way you got to look at it, man.
I think that gives me the most anxiety and out of anything is scheduling things and then thinking in my head, like, is something else going to come along? Like, am I going to, is this a good choice?
Yeah.
Should I lock into this when something else might, you're always trying to balance like what you lock into versus, because you only have but a certain amount of time. Most of the stuff is during the summer, late fall. And when it starts filling up, I always dread when I'll see like a phone call from an artist that I really love working with. And I'm thinking like, please don't ask me for this certain week because I know I can't do it, and it always ends up being like the exact week that you're, on tour or something. And I hate saying no to people. I hate that thought of like, oh, they're going to get another guy, like it's always like balancing, keeping multiple relationships, cause I'm not just a one artist type of guy. I play for like,
your
like
session,
7
your
or 8.
Sideman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's man, when I get phone calls, I just, your heart starts pumping like, oh, please don't let it conflict with something,
I hear you, man. All right, let's talk about gear for a little bit and guitars and music. You got a ton of really cool guitars. What's your go-to? And when I say go-to, the one you like playing, not the one that you got to reach for sessions.
I think if I can only take one guitar, I'll take, I don't know if you can see that Jazz Master.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 62 neck that I got on eBay, and I wanted to build a Jazz Master around it. But I wanted to build one to my specs because I had another Jazz Master that I liked, but there was things I didn't like about it.
Like what? Because I was looking at maybe getting one. So tell me what you didn't like.
So the number one, the radius, like, was a vintage radius. And so it was just really hard to get, like, you had to have the action pretty high on it. And then you had, with the vintage ones, like, you have to have, you have to shim the neck to get the break angle. And then the bridge, the strings would always pop out because of the way the bridges were, and it would never stay in tune. And then the pickups were like ice picks. So what I did was I got this neck, and it turned out that the neck had been sitting with the truss rod cranked for a couple years. And when I got it, it was like unusable.
It's Fender, an actual 62 Fender neck.
So yeah, I don't know. The guy told me that he advertised it as a reissue.
Okay.
But some people have told me that they think it's not even a reissue.
Oh, so
including my tech. So I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I paid the price of a reissue.
Right.
But what happened was it was totally warped. And so I brought it to my tech. His name is Walter. And if anybody's on the gear page, they know him. He's like the guy on the gear page. And he was like, man, this is trash. Like, you need to throw it away. And I was like, what's trash about it? And he's like, I can't fix it. And I was like, you can't fix it at all? Like, you're one of the top guys in the world. You can't fix it. he said, well, I would have to re-radius, like sand the neck, re-radius it, refret it, put a new nut on it, and it would be like a lot of work. I said, how much money? And he said, like $400. And I was like, so for $400, I could get the radius I want. Could you do a compound radius? And he's like, yeah. And I said, can you put on like stainless steel jumbo frets? He's like, yeah. I said, can you do a bone nut? He's like, yeah. I said, $400, I get all that. Like, do it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that is pretty cool, actually.
That's exactly what I want, So he did that, and the neck is just amazing now. And then I got a company called MJT to build a body around it, and they did like a relict body based off of like a '60s Jazz Master. And then I went ahead and did like the Mastery Bridge, which is just light years past the stock bridges that Fender puts on it. And did a Mastery Bridge, Mastery Tremolo, and then I got Lawler pickups to do like a P90 in a Jazz Master size. So they're Lawler P90s on there. And then I took out the rhythm circuit and all that, so it's more just like a Les Paul type switching.
Yeah, I noticed there's no. It doesn't look like there's any switches there outside of the pickup switch.
Yeah, I took them out because they were super heavy and they weren't doing anything.
That's interesting. What made you paint it gold? That's an unusual color.
So there was this. A lot of people consider it the holy grail of Jazz Masters. I think it's like a 58 or a 59, and it was one of the prototypes of the Jazz Master, and it was a gold with a gold pickguard.
Okay.
And I always thought that was cool, and Fender never really reissued it or anything. And I just love gold stuff because when I'm playing on stage, I like to wear mostly dark colors like denims and blacks, and then have a kind of pop. The guitar pops.
Okay.
Because as a side guy, I noticed like when you're wearing like a lot of like colors and stuff, like the artist is like, hey, what are you doing? You're not the main guy.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of gotten to the like, okay, cool. So what they want is like my focus is the guitar is the focus, not me. So I like gold guitars because like when the light hits it, it like really shines.
Yeah, pops.
And I totally noticed that like concert photographers would take way more pictures and send them to me when I started playing gold guitars.
That's interesting.
And so like I've got like tons of like professional pictures of me for like websites and social media because playing these gold guitars. And so so it's turned out to be like everything I didn't like about the other Jazz Master is totally fixed in this one. It's like the ultimate guitar. And then my other guitar is I got a Suhr classic HSS, where it's like a humbucker and two single coils.
That's the one right behind it over there.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's a white one and a gold one, and I love the white one. You can't see it.
Yeah, the white one I can't see. I can see the gold one.
It's like hiding back there.
Okay, there I see it up on the wall there. Yeah, so you got two of them, and then you got the telly up there.
Yeah, so the white one, I loved it, but I didn't want to yellow. And so I don't play it outside. And I wanted to get another gold one. So I got a gold one just like it. And so the Jazz Master and the gold Suhr are the two gold ones are like my main two guitars. But then I have a ton of stuff. Like I've got like a Chet Atkins Gretsch up there.
Man, that's a really gold, of course. That's a really pretty guitar. Everything on that's gold, all the hardware and everything.
Yeah. And then this guitar is probably the best playing guitar I have. It's a PRS spruce hollow body, which they don't make anymore. And a lot of the PRS guys consider the spruce hollow body to be like the greatest PRS that was ever made.
Man, I have talked to so many guys that just love their PRS. I mean, love the PRS.
Yeah. It's funny because, I started playing PRSs because my jazz professor was from Berkeley, and a lot of the Berkeley guys played PRSs. And so to me, in my mind, PRS was a jazz guitar. And I would play it for people, and people are like, why are you bringing that heavy metal guitar to this? This is a country gig or a pop gig, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I don't really consider it that, but I would just get it all the time. And so I was like, okay, I won't bring it anymore. People are going to say something about it, and I have 3 PRSs. And so for the longest time, I didn't play them out. But lately, like, it seems like everybody in country music is playing PRS now.
I know a ton of guys playing PRSs.
Yeah.
Man.
And so now it's cool because like I can play them and not be like, what are people going to say now, But yeah, I love them.
What do you find the Sir has over the Fenders?
So like, if people don't know, John Suhr was like one of the original custom shop guys at Fender, and then started his own guitars. But the necks on them are just impeccable. And
smaller, thicker, in what way?
Like the fretwork, like he just flecking and everything, and his necks, from what I'm told, are, whether you get a custom shop or their standard line or a limited one, they're all the same necks. It's not like they have like a different factory, and so like the fretwork is perfect. Everything, like, it just, there's a feel to it,
Are those stainless steel frets? Because that makes is a massive. It's like, that's like cheating almost,
right?
I had an Anderson for a while. I had to get rid of it because I didn't like the pickups at all. But it had stainless steel frets, and it was tough to get rid of it because of that alone.
Yeah, I think for a while, John Suhr and Anderson were working together
on the fretwork.
On their necks and stuff, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I wouldn't be surprised. The neck, I mean, it was impeccable. I loved it, but I just, I had this expensive sort of guitar. I'm like, people, why don't you just take the pickups out? I'm like, man, this is a ton of money for something I don't want. I just want something to sound good. I mean, I get it, but like, I got to take the pickups out of that Les Paul, but I didn't pay, over $3,000 for it,
Yeah.
So it's a little easy to do, but that's a really pretty guitar, that Sir. Both of them are great looking.
Yeah, it's funny because I really love Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
And his tone with like a Strat.
Yeah.
And I was researching like, what kind of pickups is he using? Because I was thinking I would swap the Sir pickups for whatever pickups he used. And I come to find out that John Suhr personally hand wound his pickups.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's interesting.
So he's literally uses John Suhr pickups
in his Fender.
Yeah, because it's when John Suhr was with Fender,
Oh, okay, makes total sense. Did you see that him and Rod Stewart are doing a couple of concerts together in L.A.?
No, I did not.
Yeah, it just came out like in the last couple of days that they're doing these, like the old days. I mean, that's what everybody's hoping anyway. Like when they were with the early Jeff Beck band, or it wasn't. It was what band? I forgot the name of it when they did like Superstitious and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Back in the good blues days when he was, cranking. Wow. That's cool, man.
Ridiculous.
Oh, I love Beck. Yeah. I love those guitars. They look great. You got a ton of guitars, man.
Yeah. I got a bunch there. And then I've got a bunch of flight cases in the next room with guitars in it.
Very cool. And I noticed most of your necks are rosewood or ebony, probably. Yeah.
I only have 2 maple necks. It's the Sir, the white Sir I have has a maple neck. And then I have a Wolfgang EVH.
Oh, EVH,
Wolfgang. Yeah.
What made you get that?
I just love Van Halen.
There you go. Good marketing. There you go.
And I thought, man, like it would be fun to just play Van Halen songs on a Wolfgang. And I found a Japanese one that was really hard to find on used online that somebody had. It was a guitar shop that just was trying to get rid of it, and I picked it up and. I don't play it live or anything, but I just like having it. Yeah,
that's cool. There's always that test. Somebody was telling me the test, before you buy a guitar, the last thing you test is you stand in the mirror and you look at it and you hold it and see how it looks. And if it works or not, and that is really important. It's got to look, it's got to feel that aesthetically right for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are you listening to now, guitar player wise?
So, I mean, first, Jimmy Page is just like my hero. Mm-hmm. And him and Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots were
STP,
like they got me into guitar. But modern guys, I love David Grissom. I love
I interviewed him.
His tone is just ridiculous. Like the way he melds country, jazz, and pop, like it's just off the charts. So I love him. Sean Tubbs, if there's any guitar player that I could just like absorb his playing, he would be the guy. Like his chromatic lines just make me like want to die.
I interviewed him as well. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah, I think that was the first episode of your podcast that I had heard.
Oh, with Sean?
Yeah, because I wanted to know anything I could about him, you know.
Very soft-spoken guy.
Yeah, was it on his podcast or your podcast that he mentioned being with Stone Temple Pilots?
On MTV. Was that what we talking about? Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. Which was crazy for me to find out that he, you know, somebody who I like so much had played with my favorite band, you know, like way back in the day. And I had to go watch it again. I was like, that's not Sean Tubbs. Sure enough, it's him with long hair, you know.
Well, that might have been a different, that was probably because we're all audio, not video. But he did mention that. We did talk about that on the show.
Yeah. So I went to YouTube after that.
Okay.
I looked it up, you know, like, because I was like, wait a minute. No, there's no way. So
his videos are great. His review videos, to me, they set the standard for everybody's. You know, the way he does two guitar, you know, that's really difficult.
Yeah, he'll make you want to buy anything. Like, I started realizing like it wasn't just a coincidence. The things that he would do demos of is just like he could play through anything and it would sound amazing.
He's a great player, man.
He just did so my buddy Rick Matthews he owns Matthews Effects. Sean just did his a review of his new Overdrive, and I had done a video a while back with him, and like I'm just like, hey, don't even post that video. Like, now that Sean has done it, you know, like I mean, he is just the ultimate. I met him at NAMM, and he was so nice, like
very nice guy.
But I think that's pretty much the guys that, you know, and then just Van Halen. I love Van Halen, but I think you're the first person I've admitted that I love Van Halen, because, you know, as soon as you say that, people expect you to play a certain way. And
I think I've interviewed, let me tell you, the people in your age bracket, you know, it's like there's different age bracket push buttons. The Beatles is for, like, I'm 55, so the guy's 10 years older than me. Everybody was the Beatles.
Yeah.
The guys my age, it's kind of like Hendrix, Jimmy Page, and then 10 years younger than me, it's Van Halen and Kiss.
Yeah.
Those are the most prolific sort of people. So no, that's every guy that plays guitar that's, you know, in that age bracket and younger is turned on by Van Halen.
Yeah,
for sure, man.
But yeah, I don't like to admit it because, you know, obviously I don't think anybody can really play the way he played.
No, like, he's pretty unique.
Like, I love the fact that not only was he doing the shredding, but his blues licks were so tasty. Like, yeah. And his tone on that, I don't know, not so much the later albums, but the first, like his Brown sound, like I am obsessed with trying to figure out like how he did that. And, you know, I don't know if you saw that the Met in New York has his original touring rig on display right now. I was just up in New York last week, and I walked by there, and I would have gone in, but I would have killed my wife. It would have killed her. I mean, I couldn't put her through that. We literally walked by, took a photo, and plus we were riding bikes outside of Central Park there, but I didn't see that. It looked like a very cool thing. I didn't realize he had his rig, though. Yeah, they've got the bombshell, you know, the World War II bombshell where he put his Echoplexes in it. They've got that there. And supposedly his original Plexis, but some people are saying that they're not because he was so secretive about it. But Jimmy Page's original one. Oh. You know who was another guy that was supposed to be really secretive was, do you know Roy Buchanan? Are you familiar with his stuff? Yeah. He was supposedly like,
he would. I don't know if this is true because I've talked to guys that have seen him a bunch of times and they said it wasn't. I've talked to other guys that said it was. He would turn around and not let you see what he was doing when he was doing all this pyrotechnic stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. He was kind of a tortured guy, unfortunately. Beautiful player, one of my favorites, but
yeah.
And I agree with you about Grissom. Grissom's great. His tone is pretty intense and he's really good at using effects takes it to another level. You know, he's not just putting a distortion on or this or that. He's changing his playing to maximize that sound.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And yeah. Ever sell a guitar you wish you can get back?
Oh, definitely. I sold my my first real guitar was a Gibson Firebird.
Oh wow.
And that was the first guitar I sold when, you know, like I was telling you about the medical bills and everything. Yeah. That was the first one. And I always thought I'd definitely get another Firebird, you know. And I've played so many. Every time I go to Nashville, I'm in Carter's and Grunes, and like I'm playing them, and I'm like, wow, they all play different. Like none of them feel the way mine played, you know. And I wish I could just contact the original guy and be like, hey, can I get my Firebird back?
You don't know who it is?
Nah, because it was when like Reverb had just started, and it was like one of the first sales that I did, and I didn't really have. I've since changed accounts and all this stuff. You know, it's like.
Well, man, if anybody listening to this has Chris Bellamy's original Firebird, reach out to him because he wants to buy it back.
Yeah, seriously. But and a 335. My wife surprised me with our first Christmas after we got married. She surprised me with this 335. Totally had no clue that she was going to buy it. And I was like, how did you know to buy this? And she said, I took a picture of your laptop screensaver, brought it to the store, and they found the guitar for me. Like,
that's really cool.
She surprised me with it. And that was another guitar. And I really struggled with selling that. But then the fact that she bought it for me, and it was to pay for her medical bills. It's like, I can't hold on to this, you know, this is like, you know, and so I missed that one too.
Yeah, but you got to do, you know, and you know this, you got to do what you got to do, man. Life goes on, and you know, you make the best decisions at that time, man. And it sounds like it was pretty reasonable what you did.
One day I'll get them back.
Desert Island discs, no particular order, just for
discs.
Right now. Yeah, CDs.
Man, just one?
No, top 3.
Ooh.
Just for now, because like, you know, like I could ask you that question in a half hour, it'd be 3 different ones.
Yeah, I'd probably have to pick Houses of the Holy.
Great record.
By Led Zeppelin.
What's your favorite song on there?
I don't even know. Literally all of them. Like I don't skip through that album at all. I just go straight through. You know, normally you like skipping through.
Sure, yeah.
But
No Quarters on there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite song. One of my favorite Zeppelin songs, actually.
And then probably Van Halen 1 would have to be one of them. And then there's this band that I love, the sax player on. They're called The Midnight, and their sax player is a session guy, and it doesn't really have much guitar stuff on it. It's total 80s. It sounds like an 80s movie soundtrack. Like
yacht rock?
Like if you think of like all the 80s movies, like where there was always like kind of like Karate Kid, or, you know, those things where it's like them against the world.
Yeah.
You know? It's like, it's mostly instrumental, and it sounds like the songs are super long, and it sounds like you're listening to like an 80s movie for like 3 hours, you know.
The Midnight.
And so I love listening to that when I fly. But yeah, that's one of them. So I only get 3. Is that what you said?
Yeah, you can take a bonus one, man.
I think there's a James Taylor album where Michael Brecker sax player, Michael Brecker, played on like right before he died. And it's got the Hoagie Carmichael song "Nearness of You," which is the song that me and my wife like danced to our first dance.
Oh, that's cool.
But Michael Brecker's tone is just amazing on there, and I love James Keller's songwriting and everything. So I love that album.
Very cool. How long you been with your wife? A long time, it sounds like.
Oh man, why'd you ask me that? 14 years, I think.
No, good for you, man. Congratulations. Okay. Man, this is a tough question. All right. What do you like most about yourself?
About myself? Ooh. Man, that is a tough question. I think my favorite attribute of myself is I love connecting people. And by connecting people, like if I have somebody kind of like the way Blake connected me and you. Yeah. Like I love connecting. I like people that I'm friends with to become friends with my friends. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what do you like about that? That's interesting.
I don't know. Like I like even when I was in high school, like my whole group of friends were friends because they were each friends with me separately from different areas of my life, and we ended up. I just like bringing them together, you know. And so I like that in the music world, where like for instance, a buddy of mine that plays drums on a lot of the stuff I do. He just filled in with an artist I played for, and from that point on, he's friends with the artist, and it's kind of like this network that grows, you know. And that's pretty much like the Nashville world right there. It's like you got your friends, you know, your friends, all the people that play on the record are because they're friends first, you know. Yes, and so
I think music in general is like that.
Yeah, it is. I think. That's people always say, like, you know, how do you get into the business? How do you get, you know, it's like you got to be a great player, but on top of that, you got to be people got to like you, you know. They got to like hanging out. Like if you're on tour, you're only playing for an hour a day. You got to be with the person for 23 more hours, you know. So I try to be self-aware of that, you know, and realize like that, you know, it is a relationship. You know, and so, but I just love connecting people. I love like bringing a guy on to sub for somebody, and then all of a sudden that guy's like, you know, we're in a text thread, and they become good friends with the bass player, and you know, like, and then it just grows into this like family of like network of musicians.
That's very cool of you.
But yeah.
Flip side, one thing that you'd want to change about yourself.
Change about myself. That's a tough question. I mean, from a very superficial side, you know, I would like to be more healthy.
You mean just your habits?
Yeah, like eating better, and you know, especially when you're on the road. Like I have no self-control. It's like so. There's this thing that like a lot of my friends know that I love Dr. Pepper.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I don't know what it is. And for some reason in Nashville, every restaurant has Dr. Pepper.
Really? I don't even know when that's interesting. That's wild.
And so as much as I try to not drink soda, whenever I go to Nashville, I just cannot stop drinking Dr. Pepper. Like, you know, and so it's like self-control with stuff. Like I'm a little obsessive. I go overboard. My wife knows that. She knows I go overboard with things. So whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm going to go overboard. You know, I can't like, you know, like with the drugs thing, I know I can't even touch a joint because I know I would end up being completely like smoking 10 joints a day, you know.
Well, because, man, credit to you. At least you're aware of it and you don't do it.
Yeah. So I have to keep things away from myself or I get super obsessed, you know. Like, I mean, I love cookie dough. And if there's a thing of cookie dough in the fridge, I'll eat the whole thing like raw. Like, that's the kind of stuff. So it's like, man, just get the stuff away from me. So, going back to we were talking about photography, like I'm, been obsessed with that for the last 3 months, trying to learn, going to YouTube University, as they say, and just like, so I dive into things. So I try to point myself into positive directions rather than negative directions.
Right. It's a blessing and a curse to be like that, basically. Yeah, I feel you, man. Something people might be surprised to hear or find a little odd about you.
A little odd about me. I think a lot of people think I'm an extrovert because I like being around people, but I like being around certain people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't like being around just people in general. And matter of fact, a lot of times when I'm at a party, like where I'm not really, it's kind of like your acquaintances, but you're not really friends. I get really antsy in those situations, and I'm like, man, I gotta leave. Like, I'm not really trying to be here.
What's the profile of people you like or dislike being around?
I don't know. Just like if it's people that I'd like to hang out with one-on-one, I love being in a group of a bunch of people like that.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not really good at small talk and kind of just, like funerals. Like, I'm terrible at funerals, like I'm like, man, I'm just going to go sit in the car,
I've never been to one, man, to be honest.
Oh, really, man? Yeah.
I've never been to one.
I think I went to like 30 funerals in the last year.
Holy crap, man.
Yeah. Like my wife's has a huge family, and like, we're getting to that point where, our parents are that age,
Yeah.
And like between, between my family and her family, like, we've just been to a ton of funerals in the last, it's that everybody's the same age. So it's all happened at the same time. And I get real antsy. Like, I'm like, she knows I'll just be in the car, she's like, are you okay?
Yeah, like, who likes going to a funeral? I mean, I don't know, but I got to believe, like, no one's waking up and saying, man, I hope I get to go to a funeral this week.
Yeah, true. Or even weddings. Like, I don't really like, I like going to a wedding, but like the reception, people love doing receptions and dancing and all that stuff. And like, I'm like, man, I need to go home and work on some tracks or something. Like, like I can't just relax and enjoy being in that environment sometimes.
Right. Do you have a drink when you go out? Like, if you had a drink, would it chill you out?
Yeah, I will. Yeah. But like I said, I have to be careful because I can go overboard real quick,
Sure.
And so, my wife is like she's like, hey, how many, like, I like, Jack and Coke.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, how many, is that have you had 2? Have you had 3? Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but that, it helps a little bit, but I don't have anxiety as far as like, I'm not nervous or anything. I just kind of am like, I guess it's the urgency thing.
The time, your sense of time is ticking in the back of your head. Yeah,
that's all I can think about. It's like, man, like, I could have done so much in this last hour,
No, I get that. I struggled with that. Now I'm a lot better with, I think I've become less, for me, what I've done is I've looked at it as, like, if I'm going somewhere because my wife wanted to go, that I'm doing this for her and I'm good with that. And then I won't be like, cause she's done so much for me. So I'm just like, it makes it easy. I'm not thinking about time,
right?
Not that I wouldn't want to get out of there, but I'm not, I'm able to say, okay, well, I'm here for Ann. Let me enjoy this and let me, hang out with her and relax. But I understand exactly where you're coming from because I was very much like that.
Yeah. So I go out of my way to hide that though. So like, hopefully none of my friends listen and be like, hey, what category am I in?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, you don't want to watch. You'd rather be there than watch the wedding video. I'm assuming that's like. You ever do that? You go to someone's house, and, hey man, we got the wedding video. I'm like, oh my god,
nah,
this is the worst
nope,
hour and a half of my life I'm about to go through, man. That is just horrible. Who's had the biggest influence on you musically and personally?
I mean, first and foremost, my dad, just because he was the one that got me into it.
Yeah.
But then when I was in probably like, I'd say 7th or 8th grade, he asked a bunch of his professional friends, like, who's the best sax player/teacher in like our state. And they all said this guy named Jim Nesbitt, who was he was with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra for a while, and he was also like, I think he was in charge of the Army School of Music for a while.
Oh, that's huge.
And he's considered one of the best woodwind specialists in the world. And he was pretty close to us, and so my dad sought him out, got me lessons with him, and he groomed me from 7th grade on to, my early 20s. I didn't know that he was setting me up to be a professional musician, but he was super hard on me, and at times I hated it, but it's because of him, that I got anywhere. He was the one that set me up with the audition for the symphony. He was the one that got me the gig with Gladys Knight and all the big names. He was the one that got me those gigs. And
it's amazing how nice how supportive your dad was. That's phenomenal.
Yeah. He would search all over the place. Like I said, my violin teacher was from Juilliard. So like, he wasn't trying to, I don't know if he was trying to not waste money or just, go best of the best, but yeah, he didn't.
No, but it's one thing to say, hey, who should give lessons and who's the best in the state. That's a big difference,
Right.
The intent is totally different there,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And personally,
he my dad always would give me these instruments that like my sax, like in 7th grade, I was playing like a $4,000 sax,
holy smokes.
So he would, because he owned a music store, a violin store, he also could get like instruments too, so he wouldn't give me an instrument based on my skill level. He would give me an instrument based on what he wanted my skill level to get to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm like, he's like putting guitars in my hand that were worth way more that I should have been touching at like 5 years old,
Wow.
playing like, $8,000 violins and stuff. And
yeah, but it doesn't sound like you were in the least bit like spoiled or tainted. I mean, you sound pretty utilitarian about these things.
Yeah, I didn't even really realize how much these things cost, at the time. And I didn't realize that I just thought like, oh wow, saxes are expensive, violins are expensive, guitars are expensive. I didn't realize that there was the option to buy like a $200 guitar, or like a, $300 sax or something,
Sure.
So yeah, he gave me everything that I needed. He set me up for success.
That's great. So he'd be the guy that influenced you both musically and personally, you think?
In my musical life, yeah. Yeah.
Two more questions, Chris. Any hobbies outside of music besides photography?
That's been my obsession lately. I do love mountain biking, although I haven't been this season, but I love biking. And I used to love tennis and basketball, but I have since injured my rotator cuff.
Oh, that's killer, man.
And it's on my right arm. And so I've tried as hard as I can to not do anything with my right arm other than play guitar.
Yeah.
So like I'm trying to like write with my left hand. I'm trying to like drive with left hand, everything, eat with left hand, and just save my arm for playing. So
yeah. That's a tough injury, man. I know those things hurt.
Yeah, I can't mess with like eight months of being in a cast or anything. So
yeah. Hey man, last question. Toughest decision you've had to make, or most difficult thing you've had to do?
The most difficult thing I've had to do was playing in the Virginia Symphony. The Virginia Symphony shares the conductor of the New York Symphony, Joanne Folletta. Well, at the time it did. And she's like world-renowned conductor. And she's actually a phenomenal classical guitarist. And when I first started with the symphony, I think I was 19. And I totally big head, thinking like, man, like, look at me, I'm like 19. And the symphony had like players from like China, Australia, all over the place,
Was that a full-time gig, or is that like?
Well, since I was a sax player, the sax players were not full-time. They were whenever the symphony did things with celebrities.
Okay.
They would add the sax line.
Gotcha.
But then we as a sax line would also do things outside of the symphony. So and it paid really well. Like it kind of ruined me for the rest of my life.
As a musician.
So I did not appreciate it. I thought I was the junk. I was coming out of high school and college, like being rated number 1 in the state, and total big head. I get to the first rehearsal and we're playing through some stuff. She stops the whole orchestra, points my direction. She says, if you play another wrong note, you're out of here. And wow,
that must have gotten you really serious really quick.
My every
Holy
bit of
shit.
confidence just went out the window. And I didn't play for like 2 songs. I just breathed air through my horn, And the guy next to me noticed that I was like really shook. I mean, I was sweating, and he goes, "Hey man, what's wrong?" And I was like, "Dude, I've just lost all confidence. I can't even play." And he goes, "Oh, she was talking to the trombone player behind you, right?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like, "Nah, today's his first day as well. Both of you guys are new today." And he's like, "You didn't hear him play that note?" And I was like, "Nah, man, but I've been like shaking in my boots for the last 2 songs." Oh my God. But
in hindsight, was he just making you feel better, or was she really talking to the trombone player?
It was really, because I ended up talking to the conductor, and I apologized. She's like, "Oh, I wasn't even looking at you. I didn't even notice that you were not playing, And I was like, because I thought that was it. I thought I was like, I just blew the best chance in my life, And I went from being totally like confident and almost just big-headed, cocky, to just being like reduced to nothing in a second. And from that point on, like,
which served you ultimately. Yeah.
I knew it was serious. I knew she was serious. And like, I changed the way I prepared for things. I changed the way I being on time for gigs, everything changed in that moment.
Great.
And if it weren't for him, I'm glad that happened, because it just knocked everything out of me. It's like the wind getting knocked out of me. Like all cockiness just was out the window. So yeah, I've changed my perspective on music, and playing in the symphony was by far the hardest thing. Like the music was just so high. Yeah. And like sight reading, counting 286 bar rests, and then having to come in that kind of intensity. Everything else is fun compared to that, I don't even know if today I would be able to go back into that situation and be under that kind of pressure, because nothing has been that high a level. So, it literally changed my life.
Wow. That is pretty intense, but yeah. There you go. And toughest decision you've had to make?
Toughest decision. I think that passing up that Temptations gig.
Yeah, yes.
I always think about that. And, it's not until today you said, like, you might have been spared something, like I might have gotten in a car accident or something. So, I'm gonna think about that from now on. Like, okay,
well, you just don't know.
Being spared,
You just don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how shit happens. You just don't know, Hey man, I really appreciate everything, Chris. Really cool talking to you. I really appreciate you sharing a lot of the stuff that you did. It was really interesting. And I think I got a lot out of it. And I think a lot of people are going to do that. I want to tell people where to find you online. It's at, most of Chris's, he does a ton of good stuff on Instagram. So follow him on Instagram. It's Chris, CHRIS _ Bellamy, BELLAMY. And he also has a cool website at ChristopherBellamy.com. He's available for session work for anybody looking to hire him, both on sax and on guitar. And he's available. Do you do Skype lessons on both instruments as well?
I do, but I've never had a Skype lesson with sax on, I've only done guitar Skype, but I can totally do both. Yeah.
Very cool. So if you're interested, if you play saxophone, or maybe if you're a guitar player looking to learn how to play, I don't know if you want that guy. Anyway, I'll leave that between you and him. It's called Embouchure. Yeah. Skype lessons. Chris is available. Again, direct message him on Instagram or go to his site at ChristopherBellamy.com. Dude, anything else I missed?
No, man. It was great talking to you. I'm glad to meet you. Hopefully we get to hang out in person someday.
That would be very cool, man. If you come down this way, please let me know. I'll be looking out for you as well on socials. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Chris Bellamy for coming on the show, spending time with us and being so very cool. And please support Chris's music. Again, Instagram, Chris _ Bellamy, and website at ChristopherBellamy.com. Do you put all your shows that you're doing on there?
I do, mostly, if I can.
Okay.
Like sometimes there'll be reasons why I can't put what I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like unreleased stuff, but yeah, for the most part, I need to do better at it though. My wife always gets me. She's like, "Hey, why didn't you say that before it happened versus after it happened?"
Your wife sounds like a smart woman, Chris.
Yeah, she is.
Everybody, go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.